Hello everyone, myself Ashim Das, and today we are going to discuss the topics of the First World War, the Khilafat movement, and the non-cooperation movement. From the lesson Nationalism in India, History, Chapter 3 of Class 10. In the years after 1919, we see the national movement spreading to new areas and incorporating new social groups and developing new modes of struggle. So, what were these developments and what kind of implications and changes did the national movement bring after the year 1919? So, before we read about 1919, we have to go back a few years ago and we have to go and discuss the First World War. So, first of all, the war created a new economic and political situation and a huge increase in defense expenditure. Here we are talking about the First World War and where so many countries were involved, and India was also a part of the British Empire, so it had to join the First World War. The First World War started in the year 1914 and ended in the year 1918. This war created a great economic and political situation, and the expenditure and the cost of defense increased a lot. So where was this money coming from? All this money was financed by the war loans and the taxes that were increased, and even the custom duties were raised and income tax was introduced so that they could get the extra money of defense expenditure from these sources. Through these years, the prices also increased, doubling between 1913 and 1918, and this led to an economic situation and leading to extreme hardship, and which was a very bad situation for the common people. Villages were also called upon to supply the soldiers, and after the introduction of these various taxes, the condition of the people became very bad and they were suffering from poverty. And these years between 1913 to 1918, everything, the price of everything doubled up, and villagers were even told to go for the recruitment, forced recruitment. That means a process by which the colonial state forced the people to join the army. That means they have to do work under the British army. So it caused widespread anger, and then in 1918 to 1919 and again in 1920-21, crops failed in many parts of India and resulted in acute shortage and famines all over. And there was also the problem of an epidemic, the influenza epidemic. Like there was a lot of death all over the world. And according to the census of 1921, 12 to 13 million people perished or died as a result of the famines and the epidemic. People hoped that their hardship would end after the war was over, but it was not so. At this stage, a new situation happened when the arrival of a new leader was seen by the people of India, and that person was none other than Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, later known as Mahatma Gandhi. He spread the idea of Satyagraha. So he returned to India from South Africa in January 1915. And as you know, he had come from South Africa and he had successfully fought against the apartheid system there, the racist regime, with a novel method of mass agitation. That means he told the people to come together as a group, and where he did not say that people should also raise any kind of weapons or go for violence, but he said that people should go for peace and non-violence. And this idea of Satyagraha emphasized the power of truth and the need to search for truth also. He suggested that if the cause was true and if the struggle was within the injustice, within the system, then injustice and this thing would not survive. And physical force was not necessary to fight against the oppressor. So without seeking vengeance or revenge, or without being aggressive, like we are too much angry on someone, a Satyagraha, if we are following Satyagraha, then we would become a Satyagrahi. A follower is called Satyagrahi. He would or she would win the battle through non-violence only. And how could this be done? This could be done by appealing to the conscience, the inner voice of the oppressor or the person who is doing some kind of oppression on us. So oppression here means a kind of dominant pressurizing method. So people, including the oppressors, had to be persuaded to see the truth instead of being forced to accept the truth through the use of violence. So this struggle was a very tough one, but truth was bound to ultimately triumph. And Mahatma Gandhi believed that this dharma or this non-violence could unite all the people all over the country. After arriving in India, Mahatma Gandhi successfully organized many Satyagraha movements in various places. In 1919, he traveled to Champaran in Bihar to inspire the peasants or the farmers to struggle against the oppressive plantation system. Then in the year 1917, he organized a satyagraha to support the peasants of the Kheda district of Gujarat, and affected by crop failure and a plague epidemic, the peasants of Kheda could not pay the revenue anymore, and they were demanding that the revenue collection be relaxed. Again in the year 1918, he went to Ahmedabad to help the mill workers there. The next topic we are going to read is the Rowlatt Act. So what was this Rowlatt Act? So, emboldened by this success, then when he saw that in Champaran and in Ahmedabad and in Kheda and all these places, all the people were giving him a good response, Mahatma Gandhi in the year 1919 decided to launch a nationwide, means covering the whole nation, against Satyagraha, against the proposed Rowlatt Act, which was passed in the year 1919. This act had been hurriedly passed through the Imperial Legislative Council, and despite the united opposition of the Indian members. So all the members of Indian side opposed it, but still it was passed. It gave the government enormous powers to repress the political activities and allow detention of the political prisoners without any trial for 2 years. That means they are not required to go for any kind of court and trial, and they would be just sent to jail for 2 years, and they would be detained there. Mahatma Gandhi wanted non-violent civil disobedience movement against such kind of unjust laws, which would he started a hartal. So he said that on 6th April there will be a hartal, means a complete shutdown of the whole system, and there would be a nationwide participation of the hartal. So Mahatma Gandhi always wanted that it should be a non-violent one, and he decided to go for a peaceful method with the help of Satyagraha. Now, rallies were organized, different people came out on the roads in various cities, workers went on strike in the railway workshop, all the shops were closed down. Alarmed by this popular upsurge and scared that these lines of communication like railways, telegraph would be disrupted, the British soldiers and the administration decided to clamp down, or decided to put some kind of control on the nationalists. So many kinds of theories were there, and many people were taken as prisoners, like local leaders. These local leaders were very, very important in bringing all the people together, and they were picked up from Amritsar, and Mahatma Gandhi was barred. He was not allowed to enter Delhi also. He was barred from entering Delhi. And on 10th April, the police in Amritsar fired upon a peaceful procession, causing widespread attacks on the banks, post offices, railways, and everywhere. And very soon, the martial law was imposed, and there was a very, very strict general, and he was called, that is, to take command over the situation, and the name of that general was General Dyer. So, let's read about what General Dyer did to control. So as you know, on 13th April, there was another infamous Jallianwala Bagh incident that took place, and on that day, actually it was supposed to be a very peaceful gathering, but on that day a crowd of villagers had come to Amritsar to attend a fair gathered in the enclosed ground of Jallianwala Bagh. But being from outside the city, they did not know that the martial law was going on, had been imposed there. So Dyer entered the area, and he found that all the people were there. He blocked the exit points and opened fire on the crowd, and so many people, hundreds of people were killed. And his object, he said that I have to produce a fear of moral effect in the minds of the Satyagrahis. They must feel terror and awe. As the news of the Jallianwala Bagh spread, crowds took to the streets in many North Indian towns, and there were strikes and clashes with the police and attacks on the government buildings. The government also decided to go with brutal repression, and they decided to humiliate and terrorize the people, like to give them this kind of thinking that they should not fight against the government. So the Satyagrahis were forced to rub their noses on the ground, crawl on the streets, do salam or salute to all the sahibs and the British officers, and people were flogged. Flogged means with a thin whip. They were beaten, and villages around Gujranwala in Punjab and also in Pakistan now, that is, were bombed. And seeing this violence spread all over the country and mainly in Punjab, Mahatma Gandhi decided that this kind of movement cannot be carried on as lot of people are being harassed and terrorized. That is why he decided to call off the movement. You can see the picture also. While the Rowlatt Act had been a widespread movement, it was still limited only to the cities and movements on the towns only. So, this Mahatma Gandhi now felt that we must bring a broad-based movement in India. But he was certain that no such movement would be organized without bringing the Hindus and the Muslims close together. One way of doing this, he felt, was that we have to take up the Khilafat issue. So, the First World War had ended with the defeat of the Ottoman Turkey. So, let us go to another country called Ottoman Turkey, and there also the British had defeated the local, the Khalifa, and that is the king, the spiritual leader. And that is why what happened is that the First World War ended with the defeat of the Ottoman Turkey. And there were rumors that a peace treaty, harsh peace treaty, very strict peace treaty was going to be imposed on the Ottoman Emperor. And the spiritual head of the Islamic world, known as Khalifa, he decided that he should fight against the British. But he was not getting the support, so he asked the support of the Muslims all over the world. So to defend the Khalifa's temporal powers, a Khilafat committee was even formed in Bombay in March 1919, as a lot of Muslim population lived in India also. A young generation of the Muslim leaders like the brothers Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali began discussing with Mahatma Gandhi about the possibility of a united mass action on this issue. Mahatma Gandhi saw this as an opportunity to bring the Muslims under the umbrella of a unified national movement. That is why at the Calcutta session of the Congress in 1920 September, he convinced the other leaders that we should start a non-cooperation movement. And this non-cooperation movement will be in support of the Khilafat as well as for Swaraj also. So he decided that to bring the Muslims and the Hindus together under one umbrella. Now, why non-cooperation movement? Non-cooperation means you cannot cooperate with the government. So in his famous book, Mahatma Gandhi said, the name of the book was Hind Swaraj. Swaraj means here independence, and Hind means India. In the year 1909 it was written. So he declared that British rule was established in India with the cooperation or with the help of the Indians only, and had survived only because of this cooperation. If Indians would refuse to cooperate, they would not cooperate, then British rule in India would collapse within a year and Swaraj or independence would come very soon. So how could non-cooperation become a movement? Mahatma Gandhi proposed that the movement should unfold in stages. It should begin with the surrender of the titles that the government has awarded, and the boycott of the civil services and army and police and court and legislative councils, schools, foreign goods, all must be stopped. And this will bring a kind of pressure on the British government, because nobody is cooperating with the British government. Then in case the government also used repression, if they did not obey or follow the conditions of the Indians, then a full civil disobedience movement or campaign would be launched. Through the summer of 1920, Mahatma Gandhi and Shaukat Ali toured extensively and mobilizing the popular support for the movement. Within the Congress also, however, there were some concerns about the proposals. They were reluctant to boycott. Boycott means to refuse to participate in any activity in the elections, and they feared that the movement might lead to popular violence. That is why in the months between September and December, there was an intense tussle or fight within the Congress party. Some were supporting, some were not supporting that. For a while, there seemed to be no meeting point between the supporters and the opponents of the movement. Some people said we will support the non-cooperation. Some members of the Congress said we will not support the non-cooperation movement. Finally, at the Congress session at Nagpur in December 1920, a compromise was worked out and the non-cooperation program was adopted finally. So, this was the situation how the people of India under the leadership of great Mahatma Gandhi decided to come together under the non-cooperation movement, and the Congress leaders also decided to agree and decided to unfold the movement. So, like how did the movement unfold and who participated, and how did the different kinds of social groups conceive the idea of non-cooperation. That is what is in the next topic. So we'll come to know about it later on. So I hope all of you have understood it. Thank you so much.